And there was news everywhere that 169 tribal infants in Mukara, which is barely 3 to 4 hours away from Mumbai, had died. And after 3 years, that group had the courage to come and tell us that yes, there was livelihoods and household income had increased, but unfortunately malnutrition was exactly where it was and children were still dying. Early lessons learned, but well learned. And we choose to not only absorb and hold them within ourselves, but to also scream, shout, talk, share whatever we have to every budding philanthropist, seasoned philanthropists, large and small, international and Indian institutions who want to give, that this method works. It was 2006, and there was news everywhere that 169 tribal infants in Mukara, which is barely 3 to 4 hours away from Mumbai, had died. 169 tribal children had died of malnutrition. And that number in itself was enough to shock some good people into investigating why something like this should happen in that year, in that age. And Nirmala Niketan College of Social Work, they organized a small pilot, a field action project that wanted to understand how to correct it, how to address it, how to stop it. And yes, of course, young kids went there, young students found out that largely fathers were unemployed, there was no food on the table, and of course, children died of malnutrition. And EdelGive was a young foundation, very excited, wanting to change the world with philanthropy because all problems can be figured out with philanthropy. So we were very happy to enter, support it. 3 years of work went to it. This young, very, very energized group went after this whole mission of ensuring fathers had livelihoods so that, in turn, children can be saved. And after 3 years, that group had the courage to come and tell us something that we had never envisaged, that yes, there was livelihoods and household income had increased, but unfortunately, malnutrition was exactly where it was and children were still dying. And that shook me, who had just joined EdelGive. That shook our young foundation, who had decided we would change the world, remember, in Mukara for 3 years, within 3 years. So it shook us because it went against the basic premise of what we thought was human behavior, which is if a father earns, he will feed his children first. But we realized that in abject poverty, we had no right to judge anyone, and unfortunately, fathers earned, and the money was spent largely in alcohol. And therefore, the lives of the children were exactly where they were, which is on the verge of death. We had to adapt, we had to work, and I give full credit to the organization, which is even now in Mukara doing a phenomenal job called Arohan. And they created a whole community action project where different stakeholders, which is mothers, fathers, gram panchayats, all worked together to make this a community development project. And yes, change did happen, and you'd be very happy to know malnutrition is very much under control. Children are going to school. Could it be better? Yes, of course. Everything needs to be better. But yes, the goal was finally achieved. What that taught me as a young person in philanthropy, and what that taught EdelGive as a young foundation, is that we can go and win battles, but we will not win the war. We can go and achieve targets, but we will not achieve the goal if we don't look at things as a whole. And if we think that our ambitions are satiated by ticking the chart on, yes, these were the numbers we went for, and these were the numbers we got. It taught us a very valuable lesson, and therefore made us sit back and look at what we had. We had some small corpus. We had corpus which we thought was good money to put in good projects to improve lives of people. We took a relook at what we had. We had invaluable resource that could be used to create a source that maybe in our lifetime could create change in the lives of people. The way we looked at what we had changed, and we looked at the same small corpus as a big investment that we could make in society. And we thought we were asset managers of this trust that somebody had placed in us. Somebody has to earn to be able to place this money for philanthropy, right? And when we looked at our philanthropy as an asset, we were very encouraged by how we looked at projects. Everything became long-term. Everything became a whole. Project became a tool, but community became the goal. And when we tasted that, we wanted to take that to everyone. We wanted to scream and shout in a universe which is completely projectized. A project is a tool. It does what it does. But like any good tool, it does only what it can do depending on who's using it. And as someone who is a philanthropist institution, we think our role is much bigger than achieving projects or completing projects. Our goal is to do good. And we took that message to all philanthropist institutions that we know. Relook at what we can give, not as good to do, as an investment and as a philanthropy asset. And that's how EdelGive became a philanthropy asset management company, which not only treated its own philanthropy as an asset, but also encouraged all philanthropists to look at their, whether it's 100 rupee or it's 100 million, as an invaluable investment in society. This whole process made us look at risk in a very different way. See, all of us in a little brave corner of our hearts believe we are risk takers, all right? But when push comes to shove, very few of us really have the appetite. Especially in philanthropy, we really like to see good results. We do due diligence for 6 months to find that beautiful idea that is going to change lives in the term of the project. But again, anyone who's been here for long enough knows that we are creating a dent. And we have to keep creating that dent until that dent becomes a hole. And risk is something that we have to relook at. As soon as we think of asset, we think of risk very differently. We think of long-term very differently. We think of performance very differently. And that changes the way money works. Because finally, money is working. And that's our role as a philanthropist. The brilliant people who spoke before me today are the doers. They've got their entire life there in the grassroots doing it. The role of good philanthropy is to be their fuel, not to be their roadblocks. Therefore, asset management. So when we went to many funders, we also heard that risk is very high. Some projects are too early. Some projects are too audacious. Some projects will not end in 2 years. So here is where the concept of a portfolio came up. If I ask you to buy a stock, will you put all your money in that stock? No? If you have, all of us have some investments, do we only have high risk, low return? Or do we have a nice blend of high risk, low return, low risk, high return? Things like that. We blend because we look at our own money that invaluably. I think philanthropy needs to be looked at it. Put some money into risk because it's worth it. It gives wins that simple philanthropy can't. There's a place for everything. There needs to be strategic philanthropy. There needs to be target-based interventions. There needs to be there's room for all of us. Human lives, human issues are complex, and our solutions need to be addressing them. So why look at philanthropy only as an asset also? And with this blend comes the beauty of what can happen. In 2015, we found a very, very interesting partner in Mr. Nandkumar, who was at that point Principal Secretary of the Department of Education in Maharashtra. And with his encouragement, very early, we got into what we call as collaborative philanthropy. There were 7 funders on one end. The government of Maharashtra was very key as a central partner. We were just engineering. We were just the choreographer of it all, and we had skin in the game through our old funds. And the entire principle was on FLN. It was very early days, and we went into it extremely optimistic. Before I even move on to that story, I'll tell you what that whole stage gave us is another lesson that nothing can compensate the value that good design brings when we are making interventions. Good, sharp designing of intention is very, very important for good action. And it was a good, clean design. It was a design of a collaborative fund, funders, government, us doing what we can, the grassroots NGOs, 3 of them, phenomenal work. The structure was so good that in the first year, we could address schools that covered 25,000 children. In another year, it moved to 1 million children. And today, we are actually working with the state government that is able to work with 64,000 schools and 5 million children under 8 years. And this is not happening because EdelGive is everywhere. This is happening because we've partnered, and it's like a relay. It's like a value chain that dishes out services that children need, and also speaks to multiple stakeholders, and doesn't just look at children as, what are your maths marks, and what are your English, and what's your science marks. So the way we looked at collaborative philanthropy changed. These are all invaluable lessons for a foundation that is barely 15 years old. Early lessons learned, but well learned. And we choose to not only absorb and hold them within ourselves, but to also scream, shout, talk, share whatever we have to every budding philanthropist, seasoned philanthropist, large and small, international and Indian institutions who want to give, that this method works. And it is worth all the struggle that it brings, because this is not easy. See, when we started, when there were just 25,000 children, we thought, first target, 3 months will be over. We went in and realized Maharashtra has hundreds of dialects. Children don't know what the book is saying. The book cannot be read by the teacher. Teacher cannot speak to the student. It's a very interesting problem that you only know once you enter those schools, right? It derailed our entire log frame. We had to go and talk to 7 funders and explain why something that we were so sure of, because we were working collaboratively, will now need an extra 6 months and a significant budget, because we have to figure how to make the teacher be understandable by the students. These are practical issues that come about when you want to do anything that is uncomfortable. So here is my final message. I mean, I don't think there's much to preach. There's a smart group here. There will be a smarter group that will listen when this goes online. Philanthropy is about giving. But the point of gratification cannot be signing of that check or giving of that money or feeling that you've participated in something big. The point of gratification cannot be complete till you've seen the consequences of what you have given. And I use the word consequences very, very seriously, not the word impact. Impact is measurable. Consequences are not. Consequences are seen only when you go to that village in Mukara and wonder why children are still dying even though my project is a 5-star winner. And as philanthropists and as institutions who have any role to play in the power equation of how money is moving these days in philanthropy, I think our role is to be very mindful of the consequences that we unleash with every document we sign, every hand we shake. We have to shake many, many more hands. We have to take that risk, but eyes wide open. Thank you.